I was out riding yesterday and I had a tire go all the way flat to the point that it even came off of the wheel here. As you can see, it's actually on the wheel, but it's unseated. The bead is not actually seated on the rim there. And when you're out in the middle of nowhere with just one of these little tire pumps, they just don't put out enough pressure that you can ever get it seated again. So needless to say, I ended up waiting on a ride. But apparently somebody on the forum actually had a tire come off as well, and they were asking how to do it, so it seemed like a good time to do a video. Now in my case, before I get started, I'm going to try to fix a hole in the tire, the puncture that caused it to go flat. And if you're going to do that, the first thing you got to do is find it. I just turned it around and I could actually see this little spot here. I've got it marked with a piece of chalk or a tire marker, but there's just a tiny hole in the tire. There's nothing in it. I didn't find any metal or screws, but the first thing you need to do is find it. If you can't find it by looking at it, then you may actually need to get the tire seated first, put some air in it, and then you can either spray on soapy water. Honestly, you can spit on the tire and it'll bubble with, once air's in it. You should be able to rotate the tire around and figure out where you see air bubbles from. Sometimes you can even just hear it. And once you found it, then you just got to figure out how to repair it or if it's repairable. If you've got anything in the sidewall, then don't even consider repairing it, just replace the tire. But if it's in the center of the tire, near the center of the tire, you can at least repair it in an emergency, especially like if you're on the side of the road and happen to have a repair kit or something. I'll be using this stop and go pocket tire plugger kit. And this one comes with a mushroom shaped plugs instead of the long thin plugs that the cheaper kits use. Once you've located the damage or the hole, first you got to make sure there's no metal in there, no screws, nails, whatever. Take that out, pull them out with pliers or whatever you have to do to get it out, so you've just got the hole. And once you know there's no screws or any kind of foreign objects in there, this kit comes with a rasp or a reamer tool, and you just need to insert that in the hole. Depending what kind of puncture you got, that may be a little tough. You may have to kind of screw it in at first. But you're trying to clean the hole out good. Make sure there's no jagged edges to damage the plug that you put in or anything like that. And just keep working it, and eventually it should go in and out a little easier. Now you'll need to load the rubber plug into the plugger. So what you do is just take the plug with sort of the mushroom tip facing up, put it into the plugger like so, and then you'll take this little piece of the kit and use that to push this plug down into the plugger a little bit. Now you'll need to find what they call the probe tool. Basically looks like a pick and this nozzle, and you'll slide the nozzle over the end and screw the two together. Then you'll take this assembly and start this into the repair area, and you're going to want to push it all the way in so that this nozzle is inside the tire. And once you've got that seated all the way in there, hold onto the nozzle and then unscrew this probe tool. Now you'll take the plugger that you loaded earlier with a rubber plug and screw this into the nozzle. Then you'll want to hold a little pressure on this to make sure it doesn't push itself out. Find this Allen key and use that to turn the set screw in the end of the plugger. And you're going to want to keep turning that until basically it won't turn anymore, and that should mean that the rubber plug is pushed all the way into the tire. You'll feel a good bit of resistance a little bit before it stops. Okay, it stopped turning, so now I'm going to go ahead and back the set screw out. After you've got the set screw all the way back, you can see it's a little past the edge of the plugger there. Then you grab this whole assembly and pull it out of the tire. Then you can see you've just got a little rubber stub sticking out there. You'll need to take a pair of pliers and grab a hold of this And then they say to pull it about 2 inches until this is stretched out about 2 inches, and that'll help to seat the mushroom head up against the inside of the tire there. So you can see, go ahead and pull that and seat it up against the tire. Then the kit has a little razor blade with it, or razor knife, so you can go ahead and trim that off about level with the tire. Now I need to get the tire seated on the wheel again. Now this one isn't too bad. You can see the tire is fairly close to the wheel itself, to the lip here. But if it's far off, you can take a hammer and kind of pound on it in the center of the tire, or grab it and squeeze it, and you can see it kind of pushes the tire towards the wheel a little bit, expands it outwards. If you have a lot of trouble getting one to seat, what you can do is take a ratchet strap and wrap this around the tire. So get it all the way around, and each end of the ratchet strap should have a hook, so you just hook those together and try to get it in the center of the tire. And then what you do is tighten your ratchet strap down, and that'll help expand the tire a little bit and push the sidewall into the wheel a little better. And that's not always necessary, but it can be a helpful trick if one's giving you a hard time. So you would just leave the ratchet strap on there, keep it tight, and then put the air in. Maybe you can see, like in this case, right where the ratchet strap's applying pressure, it's got the tire pushed up against there real well. And then in some other spots where there's not quite as much pressure, it's not working. So what you can do, if you have trouble seating it, is loosen that up, let the pressure off a little bit, kind of slide it around, and get the ratchet strap so it's applying pressure directly where you have the most trouble. Then go ahead and tighten that back down, and hopefully it'll push the tire out where you need it that way, right in that spot. Now I've got the ratchet strap on the tire, putting pressure on it to keep the bead up against the wheel as best I can. And then I'm just going to use my air compressor and fitting and pump the tire up, and hopefully it'll seat. If you have trouble this way, you may have to remove the valve core. There's a little tool, it's got 2 prongs on it. Stick it in there and you'll unscrew the valve core. Just be careful not to lose it. Then you can still use your inflation tool, but air will go in the tire a little faster, and it helps it inflate quickly so that it can seat a little easier sometimes. And then of course once it's seated, you'd have to reinstall the valve core and then inflate the tire to normal pressure. But anyway, for now, I'm going to try it with this in. I'll show you the other side of the tire, so hopefully you can see it trying to seat on there. I'm going to go ahead and put some air in it, and hopefully you will see this tire start to expand so that this bead seats up against the wheel better, and usually you'll hear a pop that tells you that it's seated. Well, I didn't get the pop this time, but it seems to be seated up there pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this ratchet strap, and then I'll pump it up to normal pressure. I've got my tire pumped up to 36 psi, which is where I usually run it. Smaller riders might want them around 32, but at any rate, pump it up wherever you normally run your tire. And then if you've done a plug like me, you definitely need to make sure this doesn't leak. So what I do, you can just spray some soapy water or whatever around it. You can see some bubbles just from it being sprayed, but you shouldn't see any bubbles actually filling up with air, as if anything's leaking. And if you think you may have other leaks, you can just go ahead and rotate the tire and spray a little soapy water on there, and you should be able to see if anything else starts bubbling. I do want to note that I cut this rubber plug off earlier, and actually according to their instructions you should wait until the tire's filled, which makes sense because it would help keep pressure on it and keep it pushed up against the tire. But at any rate, once it's all finished, then you would want to go ahead and trim this off level with the tire.